Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to the legislative luncheon. At this time, it's the governor's luncheon that we're enjoying today, and I hope you all enjoyed your luncheon. These legislative breakfasts and luncheons are sponsored by the Bridport Grange and the Addison County Farm Bureau, with help from Addison County Chamber of Commerce and Addison County Regional Planning. So we thank all of those organizations for helping us out. Today we have with us Governor Peter Shumlin, who will take the majority of our time, and hopefully you'll also get a chance to ask some questions. But I know his time is limited, so let me not waste any more of your time and get the governor up here. Governor?
Thank you, Tim, and thanks to the Bridport Grange and the Planning Commission and the Chamber and all those that worked so hard to show up today. And thanks for the great lunch. Let's give it up to the chefs back there. And I want to thank our legislators for being here. You couldn't have a better Senate team. I'm so glad that Senator Claire is here. She's doing an extraordinary job chairing the Health and Welfare Committee in the Senate. Passed out a really important bill on opiates that I'll talk a little bit about just this week in terms of prescribing practices. Claire, great work. Thank you. We also have your hometown boy, Fred Bazers, here, born and raised in Bristol. Is that true? Well, close enough. Been here long enough so no one could remember. And the chair of the Education Committee, who's just doing such a great job. Stand up, because you know you were the pariah of Act 46, and now Vermonters have figured out you're the hero of Act 46. And thank you for your great work. And you've got a great delegation. You even have a great press crew. We got John Flowers here. He's one of the few press people left in Vermont that can still be cheery once in a while. So thank you, John Flowers, and thanks that you got such a great boss. I've got with me Jess Gingrich from my staff. Jess, give us a wave just in case you have questions. And hometown boy from the Vermont State Police, Chris Scroden, who he's on your school board here. And are you up for re-election in March? Oh, just got re-elected. That's right. What am I thinking? Yeah, that's right. You got re-elected on a landslide, right? So landslide Chris, thanks for keeping him in a job aside from just babysitting me. Listen, I want to be able to answer your questions, having a conversation with you about what's going on. I'll give you a little bit of perspective. You know, I think I know I've come to this luncheon every single year that I've been governor. It's been a real privilege. And this will be my last, since this is an annual event. I've served 6 years. People sometimes forget that's the 5th longest serving governor in Vermont history. I'm actually tied with Governor Cunin, so she and I are the 4th and 5th longest. And you know, being here in Middlebury and Addison County and Jim Douglas country, people think that governors serve 8 years, or for Howard Dean 11 years, but they are the exception. We're actually a little more in tune with what most governors have done. Used to be 2 years by choice, and then it was 4 occasionally. I think 6 is perfect. And let me just tell you a little bit about sort of big picture as I do head out in January. Some of the things that I think are important and some of the things that we have left. Listen, when you look at, forgetting Addison County for a second, and I'm really encouraged by some of the things that are happening in Addison County, this is a time where everybody is a little bit grumpy across America towards politics, politicians, and the rest. And we all know why. That's why you end up with Donald Trumps and all the other stuff that's going on out there. But in Vermont, I think we've got a lot to celebrate. Now, I know you don't agree with me on everything. If you do, there's probably something slightly wrong with you. You may not even agree with me on most things. But I think what blesses this state is that we still have legislators from 4 different parties, Republicans, Democrats, Progressives, Independents, and governors, usually from 2 parties, either Republicans or Democrats, that work together to actually solve problems. And we take on tough challenges, and we talk about difficult things. And democracy still works because we care most about the state, more than we do about partisanship, and we get things done together. And let's just look back here a second at some of the things we've gotten done. When I came on, it was just coming out of the worst recession in American history. Things were pretty tough. And, you know, since then, we've created 17,000 new jobs. We have gone through the period in the last 5.5 years where, for the first time since they started keeping records in 1943, Vermonters' incomes have gone up above the national average every single year for 5.5 years. It's just a fact. Now, it doesn't mean it's enough, doesn't mean we wish there wasn't more, but the fact of the matter is when the biggest challenge is that our incomes are being held back, that the middle class is struggling and low-income Americans are struggling, we have actually seen for the first time incomes in Vermont rise above the national average for the longest sustained period since we've been keeping records. And if you ask employers, they'll say to you across Addison County and across Vermont, Governor, our problem when you came on was we were doing layoffs, we were contracting. Now our problem is to find enough skilled, trained workers so that we can expand our workforce, continue to grow jobs, and continue to prosper economically. So I just want to point out a few of the things that I think we should be proud of. First, there is no doubt in my mind that the choices that we've made about education, with the help of Dave and many others, is directly related to a better outcome for kids getting them beyond high school. What do I mean by that? Vermont does beautifully when it comes to getting kids through high school. We got one of the highest graduation rates in the country. What we were failing miserably at is getting more Vermont kids beyond high school. And when I was a kid growing up in Vermont, and I'm the first governor who was actually born and raised here in a long, long time, I had many, many friends who now look like me, old, gray, and wrinkled, who didn't get beyond high school, who went out into the workforce and made a great living. Today, if you stop your education at the end of high school, you are sentencing yourself to a low-wage job for life, almost certainly. So that's why the problem we have of being lousy at moving kids beyond high school, big challenge. So what have we done? We're now the first state in America that gives every kid a strong start because of the policies that we've implemented, where we're the only state where 3- and 4-year-olds have access to quality preschool education. We just are. Second, we now have individualized work plans for every kid in Vermont, starting in 7th, 8th grade, where you actually relate the educational choices that you have to the career you might want to pursue, and kids start talking early about what you make if you're an electrician, what you make if you're a plumber, what you make if you're a brain surgeon, what you make if you're an accountant or a nurse. So they relate their educational enterprise to the choices they're going to make going forward, individualized work plans. Third, you can now get 2 free years of college, free college in Vermont, which you couldn't get when we started. How? With early college and dual enrollment, you can now use your high school experience to get a year of free college credit through the state colleges, CCV, and other participating independent colleges, which was not true 5.5 years ago. And we talk about this stuff, we say, it just sounds like gobbledygook. I'll give you an example. I got a call from my niece recently, Brattleboro, Vermont, Brattleboro Union High School. This is what this program's tailored for. Her dad never got to college. He was a roofer. He now works in maintenance at GS Precision. His mom never got beyond high school, and she works as a para in the schools. She calls me up and says, Uncle Pete, you're not going to believe this. I'm done with, she's a bright kid, I'm done with my credits in 11th grade at Brattleboro High School, which used to happen to all of us, you know, many of us back then. Not me, I was a lousy student, but folks who were a better student than me. And, you know, I remember what we used to do in that situation. You know, the drinking age was 18, I don't know. We didn't study a lot. We did some things that were legal at the time when you were 18. We did some things we're trying to make legal, but we didn't sit down and get a free year of college. And, you know, here she is going to CCV, downtown Brattleboro. She's going to a free year of college when she graduates from high school. That's a big deal to a family who wants their daughter to go to college but struggles to pay for it. She goes in 1 year down based upon early college and dual enrollment. Second, If you stay and work in a STEM-related field in Vermont, we have funded a program where you can literally get paid back for a year of college if you stay and work here 5 years in a field where we need you. Third, and finally, and I hope the legislature acts on this, I've asked us to fund this year what I call the Step Up program. And it's modeled on a plan at CCV in Morrisville. And I went up and visited. They call it Man Up. It's only for men up there. We're going to change that so it's for women and men. Step Up from Man Up. But this is how it works. When you go check out at Price Chopper, or you go call in a roofer to do your roof, there's a lot of folks who quit in high school who want to go back to school. They're 22 to 32, 33, 34 years old. And they are doing all they can to pay their rent, make their car payment, support a kid or two in some cases, do everything they can to scrape the money together to get by, and they want to go back, but there's no way they can scrape 2 pennies together to do it. So what this program does is give them a gas card so they can get to CCV, give them support among the other folks in that situation. They literally have role model support from their peers who are figuring out how to organize their lives so they can go to school, and, in my proposal, a free semester at CCV so that you can get started and get back in. That's huge to folks who are leaving out right now. Folks who are working at low-end jobs, want to make a change, wish they'd made different choices, but there's no way financially they can do it. So education matters. We're making great choices there. It's going to serve Vermont well. Second, energy. Listen, I know we got the Route 7 problem. You learn a lot when you're doing something new. But the fact that we have delivered on an energy vision that I came into office with and campaigned on and actually made it happen is really good for Vermont. What do I mean by that? Listen, when I ran, I said, listen, we're going to shut down that old aging nuclear power plant. And instead, which is in the county where I was born and raised, instead, we're going to build out solar, we're going to build out wind, we're going to build out renewables, we're going to do energy efficiency right. I said, it'll create jobs, it'll lower rates, and it'll serve us well in a winter where we couldn't get enough snow to ski. Climate change. Everybody said, oh, he's a dreamer. Politicians promise this stuff. They never do it. Forget it. The lights will go out and our rates will go up when they shut down the old nuker. Well, what's happened? We shut down the nuker. The lights didn't go out. When I say we added 17,000 jobs, I want you to know this. 4.7% of today's workforce in Vermont is in the green jobs economy. And if you call up a Vermont company to come and put solar on your roof or in your yard, they aren't old like me. We all want young people. They're 30 and under, and they're excited about being here, living here, working here. So 4.7% every job. But here's the point. The rates didn't go up. They went down. We are the only state in New England, the only state, where for the last 4 years, 3 of those 4 years, our biggest power company, 80% of the Jews, rates have gone down, not up. So my point is, let's keep with it. Yes, we've got some adjustment to do. Senator Barrett just passed out a bill that talks about working together with planning commissions, figure out better ways to cite this stuff. That's all good. But when you hear politicians say, let's have a moratorium on renewables, I say, you tell me on your moratorium whose job you're eliminating. What 30-year-old or under's kid are you sending back out of the state? Whose rates are you going to increase, not decrease? And whose planet are you going to live on? Maybe there's another planet out there I haven't heard about. Third, healthcare. Listen, I know I didn't get all I wanted in healthcare, but I got a lot more than the press will give us credit for. I think we all agree as Vermonters that we want universal access to healthcare. We want everybody to be able to have insurance. Raise your hand if you don't agree with that. Guess what? Done. Best kept secret in Vermont. Our uninsured rate, because we have embraced the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, Vermont Health Connect, it's right now 3.6%. That was the last time we measured it, which was now a year and a half ago. And because the website's working better, I suspect it's lower. That's universal coverage. You can't get it down below 3%. Victory. What does it mean? It means that we have thousands and thousands of Vermont families who are not making horrid choices between going to the doctor, getting really sick, and feeding their families, paying their insurance, paying their rent, putting seekers on the kids. It really does. They have insurance. Second, cost. We said it doesn't matter whether you go to a premium-based system that we've got now or a publicly financed system, if we keep spending money like a bunch of drunken bandits on healthcare, and healthcare costs go up faster than our incomes, which they have been in not only Vermont but America for many years, we will bankrupt ourselves, we will bankrupt our employers, we won't be able to compete for jobs with all the countries that are doing it in a smarter way. Well, Vermont right now is on the cusp of being the first state, with Claire and other folks' help, that's moving from a fee-for-service, quantity-driven healthcare system, where we pay for number of services provided, to one where we pay for outcomes and keeping us healthy. This is huge. Think about your own family members and how many times you've had them go into the healthcare system and see what it's cost unnecessarily. I think about my dad, who passed away from cancer about 1.5 years ago. The things that we did to him in a fee-for-service system, huge money was spent. He finally said, no, enough. He didn't live any longer because of it. I think about my mom, got her new hip, 85 years old. She got it 4 weeks ago. You all know this, but here's how the system works in fee-for-service. She's a pretty go-getter 85-year-old. She's in pretty good shape. So she says, listen, I don't want to spend a lot of time in the hospital. I don't need to. I'm going to go to rehab afterwards for 3 days, and then I want to go home. Well, the rules of the fee-for-service system for her won't allow her to go to rehab unless she has to spend 3 nights in the hospital. So when she was ready to go home after 2 nights, no, you got to spend a third. You all are paying for that idiocy. So my point is, multiply that by 1 million, and you have our current fee-for-service system that spends more money than any country in the world, has less good outcomes than most of them. We live longer, we have higher infant mortality rate, left long, we have higher infant mortality rates, we're obeser, we smoke more cigarettes, drink too much booze, all the other stuff. So that is a big deal if we can get this done. And finally, I just want to close by saying a word about opiates. Listen, it was a pretty lonely place for our Vermont over 2 years ago when I dedicated my State of the State to this challenge. It really was, and we took some hits. We did. Remember Rolling Stone and New York Times and the rest of them? There was, oh, Vermont is a terrible heroin problem. Vermont is a terrible opiate problem. Well, you know, 2.5 years later, we're not only, because we had that conversation, dealing with this disease as a disease and not a crime, moving people into treatment instead of jail. Get this, when I ran, do you remember this discussion? I said, we're going to move nonviolent offenders, people who are addicted, from jail to recovery, and we're going to save a ton of money for you. And he ran ads, someone's going to let out the rapists and the killers. Remember that? The robocalls, don't do it. You know, he's going to let them all go, and Vermont's going to be a terribly unsafe place. Some of the mayors that currently are working with me on this did the robocalls against me. Well, guess what? We have saved $50 million. $50 million in the last 4 years on money that we're not spending on corrections that we would have spent 52, 54 grand a year, and moving folks instead into recovery and back to a job. What else are we doing? We've built out treatment centers like mad across the state. There's still some waiting lists because the more we change the system, the more people line up, but we've got good recovery. We've got Narcan in the hands of cops, firefighters, anyone will take them, nurses, docs, and we're saving folks who were dying in the streets before from this disease. And finally, Claire just passed out a bill that gives us the ability to set rules on the number of pills that we pass out, OxyContin, for minor procedures. Why is that so important? I keep saying to folks, now Vermont's not so lonely. All the other governors across America, politicians are all saying, yeah, we got a heroin crisis, we got an opiate crisis, we got a pill problem. Well, guess what? This is what you got to know. Until we have an honest conversation in this country about painkillers that are approved by the FDA, we won't stop the waiting lines into our treatment centers, and we won't stop the tragedies in Bristol, in Middlebury, in Vergennes, anywhere in Vermont. We won't. Here's the facts. We invented OxyContin in the 1990s. The company went out and said to docs, nurses, providers, this is non-addictive, the first non-addictive painkiller ever invented, give it to your patients. Docs and nurses believed them. They gave it to their patients. Then they started seeing people start to get addicted to this stuff. They started wondering. They took the company that makes this stuff, Purdue, to court, found out that the 3 top executives had lied to the FDA and to the healthcare community across America. And guess what? They pleaded guilty. This is a well-kept secret. They paid a $70 million fine in a year where we sold $11 billion worth of painkillers in America, and nobody went to jail. And they'd signed up hundreds of addicts, destroyed their lives, thousands across America. Here's my point. In 2010, we gave out enough OxyContin to keep every living adult in America high for a month. In 2012, we passed out enough OxyContin to give every adult American 250 million prescriptions. That's how many adults we have, roughly. I mean, this is crazy stuff. So when Claire Eyre passes out a bill that says for minor procedures, we're going to limit the number of pills you can pass out and you have to go get back for more, we won't have things like what happened to me a few months ago when I'm walking through my office, one of my hardworking staffers' daughter is there, college kid, just got her molars taken out, and I say, how many did you get? She said, what do you mean? How many pills, how many little OxyContins did you get? Oh, she said, I got 60. Yeah. I said, how many did you take? She said, I took half of one. So we got 59 and a half rattling around out there, worth $80 a pill on the streets. This is crazy stuff. You've got to know OxyContin pills lead to heroin addiction. Full stop. When folks say, oh, pot leads to heroin, I'm sorry, but do what I've done. Go talk to the folks in prison, go talk to the addicts, go talk to the moms and dads who lost their kids, go talk to the grandparents who are now watching their grandkids because their kids are addicted. It is the FDA-approved drugs that got them addicted to heroin, not pot. Those are the facts. So we got a lot of challenges ahead, but I say this about Vermont. We're going to have a conversation about who the next governor will be. I'm staying out of that one for now. But I ask you to do this. What makes this state great is the fact that we take on difficult issues and our politicians aren't afraid to stand up and cry fire when they see fire, where other politicians won't. We didn't get any ticker tape parades going out there saying we got a heroin problem in America. There's no ticker tape parades when we go out and do the kind of things on health care that we have and expand Medicaid like we have. It's a great thing for Vermont, frankly. You know, a lot of governors, my governors refused to do that. Refused. Said no to Obamacare. We said yeah. There's no ticker tape parades when you move to renewables. Let's be honest about this, because it's controversial. You have some windmills on your ridges. You see some solar panels on Route 7. My point is this. On education, early childhood education, not everybody was happy. We have to continue as a state to make sure that we have a governor who's going to be bold, who's going to tell it like it is, who isn't running to win a popularity contest, but is running to get things done that will make this state even better. And we've done that together. Let's not give up now, because our future depends on it. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, and I'm happy to take questions on any subject. Take it away.
Please move to the microphone so that we have good TV.
Good TV.
You want to be able to hear the
Edward Payne from Bridport. And I applaud your ideas about prescription drugs, but I am bothered by people, and now Claire, I understand she has some history with medical, but I am bothered by regulations. I know that at one time I had some back pain, and I had a conversation with my physician, and he said, you know, you're taking too much. And I said, yeah, but do you want, at that point, myself, I needed more of the medication until such time as I could get a medical procedure to take care of it. And my personal experience was I didn't want the damn stuff as soon as it weren't hurting. And I'm afraid of this, you know, one size fits all, whether it's as in women a size 0 or a size 22, and it doesn't. So I think we better be very, very careful when we're going forth with this. We need to regulate our physicians. They should know better than to hand 60 pills out for that procedure. So, thank you.
Good point. And I'm going to let Claire, Senator Ayer, take that one, but I just want to say we agree with you in respect that we're not saying that we want to be the doc. What we are saying is if we don't take a strong stand on minor procedures that I outline, where you literally give out 10 pills, whatever it is, if you need more, go back to your doc and get more, we're going to continue to have this problem. But we don't want to interfere with folks that are having chronic pain like you were before your surgery. That's a different conversation, and the doctors will leave them alone on that one and let them work directly with patients. But chronic pain, what I keep saying is, listen, you cannot convince me that we have 250 million Americans suffering from chronic pain. And that's the problem, is that the industry uses the chronic pain argument to keep passing the stuff out like candy to everybody that is not in chronic pain, and that's really what we're after. Senator Ayer, you take it away. Come on up.
Well, I don't want to take away, I know you have to leave soon, so we can talk about this more after the governor leaves, but it is a one-size-fits-all. The Commissioner of Health, who happens to be a physician, will be consulting with a panel of 30 other doctors, specialists in all fields, including an acupuncturist with experience in pain management, before those are set.
Good. Yes.
Governor Shumlin, my name's Mary Martin, and I understand this is the last time you'll be doing this.
I might be back, but this breakfast, yeah, or lunch, sorry, lunch. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
And
But I won't leave you.
I've come many times,
Yep.
and every time had pretty much the same topic, which has been the pipeline.
Yep.
And I feel that you led me down an incorrect path from the beginning. Over 3 years ago, when I asked you about it, you said it really wasn't in your hands. It was up to the Public Service Board, and the Department of Public Service would represent the ratepayers, and there was this procedure, which I have now spent over 3 years of my life on. To have you come out last October, when the board really was on the verge of reopening that docket, and you come out and say, this memorandum of understanding is just the greatest thing. And that pushed it right over the edge. And they will, the Public Service Board said in their ruling, that was a huge part of why they ruled as they did. You promote renewables, and at the same time, you're pushing this pipeline down our throats. And we don't want it. It has no place in the future of this state. So you're on kind of a short time. Maybe you could just do one last great thing and put an end to this pipe.
Well, thank you. And you know, I've got to hand it to you for being eloquent and being consistent. And the only thing that I'd say in return is, you can disagree with me on this one, and you do, and you will, and good people will. But you can't accuse me of not being consistent. I said right from day one, I support the pipeline. I support it. Now, I know you don't, but what I said was that I'm going to move us to renewables as quickly as we know how, and some have accused me of moving us too quickly. Let's be honest. In Addison County, there are a lot of folks saying the governor went too fast on solar. We don't want to see all those panels. A lot of folks have said governor gone too fast on wind. Look at all those windmills we've got. But I've been very clear right from the beginning that I wanted to extend the natural gas pipeline to Addison and Rutland counties for all the reasons that I've outlined, that I believe it gets Vermonters off of oil, currently burning oil in their homes, onto a cheaper and better better fossil fuel than oil, and that it would help grow jobs. Talk to Cabot, talk to the folks that are getting that pipeline. It means real savings to them, while it moved people from oil to a cleaner fossil fuel while we build out renewables. Now, I know you disagree with me, you won't agree on that, but you can't accuse me of not being consistent. Now, my job as governor is to do what I think is right. And yes, I did help negotiate, or my team did, the MOU with Vermont Gas. I think that that small extension of our pipeline is going to be good for Vermont. And I keep saying, you know, if you're from Chittenden or Franklin County, we went up there and we said, you know, the two job centers of Vermont, Chittenden and Franklin, hey, who here wants us to take away your natural gas pipeline? You wouldn't see too many hands go up. I believe that the western part of the state is already transportation challenged because you didn't get a four-way interstate that I got on my side of the state. That hurts you. You're rail challenged. We're trying to fix that, but you are. And you're energy challenged because you don't have the natural gas that Chittenden and Franklin County enjoy at a much cheaper rate and a frankly cleaner fossil fuel than oil. So we will continue to disagree on that. We've done it respectfully. I deeply appreciate your point of view. I just strongly disagree with it. And I believe that someday the majority of folks in Addison County will say, you know, that governor was straight with us. He told us what he wanted to do. He told us why. He did it, and it hasn't destroyed us.
I'd like to correct you, if I may. It is not cheaper to burn fracked gas. And on Vermont Gas's website, they have a calculator on there where you can put in the amount you pay for fuel, the number of gallons you burn, and it will calculate what your savings would be. It actually would cost us over $100 more a year, and that's not counting the conversion and removing our old fuel oil tank. So it is not cheaper.
Okay, well, I don't think that you and I are going to get anything done here debating the merits.
I just didn't want you
but I disagree with your facts. So that's just where we are.
But it is a fact.
Well, if it were a fact, it wouldn't have been approved. If it was in fact more...
Oh, no, that's not true, honey. Ask the Department of Public Service, because they said, oh, yeah, well, that is what it is, but it is what it is. So they're aware of it.
Okay, well, we strongly disagree on this one, but we will continue to respect each other and have a respectful conversation about it. But listen, all I'm saying is you can accuse me of a lot of things, but you can't accuse me of not being consistent. Yes.
Thank you, Governor. My name is Dave Silverman. I'm an attorney in Middlebury. I'm one of the 55% of Vermont adults who support marijuana legalization. I'm one of the 68% of Vermont adults under the age of 45 who support marijuana legalization. I view this as the best and biggest economic development engine available to us in this state today, and it pays for itself, bringing thousands of jobs for young people and diversified agricultural opportunities for our struggling farmers. But I keep hearing, despite hundreds of hours, of testimony in the Senate, despite the RAND study over a year ago, that we're rushing into things and we should slow down and wait. Governor, do you feel that we're rushing into anything with this topic?
No, and I'll tell you why. I did say for a long time, I am very grateful that my good friend Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado, who I've known since college, and Governor Inslee in Washington State, and now 3 other states, went before us on this one. Just assume they figure it out. But this is how my logic works. Listen, in a survey a few months ago, we asked Vermonters, how many of you purchased marijuana in the last month? And 80,000 Vermonters, we only have 625,000, right? 80,000 Vermonters admitted to buying pot on a monthly basis. Now, I kind of figure that for an illegal activity, if 80,000 admitted in a survey, it's possible the number might be a little bit higher, but let's just assume it's 80,000. Here's our challenge. When we have this conversation, we act as if 2 things. Number 1, no one's figured this out before us, which they have now. And 2, we act as if nobody's smoking pot. We do. We say, oh, we got to worry about our roads. Well, we got 80,000 Vermonters who just admitted they're out there smoking it. Trust me, they're on the roads. Well, then we say, well, it's going to be terrible for kids. Well, listen, I'll tell you, I don't think Vermonters should smoke pot. I think it's a really bad idea. But I got to tell you, as someone who has alcoholism in my family, I don't think you should be an alcoholic either. That's a really, really bad idea. And I got a sister who smoked cigarettes, did till last few years. I think that's a really bad idea too, because they're going to kill you. So my point is, I am not saying go out and smoke pot. Great idea, let's sign everybody up. When we say, what do we do about our young people? If you go ask high school kids in Vermont, what's easier, getting booze or getting pot, they'll consistently tell you buying marijuana is easier. So here's our challenge together. Here's our challenge. When I became governor, Governor Douglas had wisely signed a bill that allowed for medical marijuana for medical situations prescribed by your doctor. Folks who are suffering from cancer, it helps with treatment, all the other things. What we didn't do at the time was allow dispensaries to grow it and put it on the market, because Colorado had made a mess of it and they were frankly just selling it to everybody. It was just a mess. So he wisely just chose not to do that. When I became governor, I said, when I was president pro tem of the Senate before I became governor, I literally one day had an elderly woman who was getting cancer treatment, had her prescription for a doctor. She called up my assistant in the Senate president's office and said, I've got my prescription, I need it desperately for my chemo. Can you tell me what a drug dealer looks like? I was like, well, I don't know, you know. So my point is, we're in an exact situation now that we were when we had medical marijuana. I signed a bill allowing for dispensaries. We've built the dispensaries. They're doing beautifully. They're growing it for the folks that need medical marijuana. It's not tapering out to the rest of the market. We've proved Vermont can do that. But listen, let me tell you what else I did. I signed a bill decriminalizing, making it a civil penalty for an ounce of marijuana or less. It's just true. Because we decided that we didn't want our sons and daughters getting criminal records when they get caught smoking pot. If you got 80,000 Vermonters admit they're doing it, you got a lot of people smoking pot. Well, now we have the same situation. We say, well, criminalize that. If you get caught with an ounce or less, you're virtually getting less trouble than if you're speeding at 85 on the highway. It's a lower fine. But then we say, go buy it from a drug dealer. So you got those 80,000 Vermonters out there right now buying it from drug dealers. Let me tell you something about drug dealers. They don't care. They'll sell you pot, they'll sell you cocaine, they'll sell you meth, they'll sell you heroin. They don't care how old you are, they don't care how young you are, they don't care what's in it. So I say, don't smoke pot. Don't drink too much alcohol, don't smoke cigarettes. But the reason that we moved to a regulated market for alcohol was because the war against alcohol, prohibition, was failing us miserably. And I say the war on drugs has failed us miserably when it comes to marijuana. And it's why the other states are doing it more wisely. Now, I just want to close by saying this. My friend Governor Hickenlooper did not want Colorado to legalize pot. And it was done by referendum. But he literally said, I think it's a really bad idea. It happened anyway. I had dinner with him in Washington 4 weeks ago. And I said, John, what's happening out there with pot? And this is what he said. He said, listen, this is anecdotal. We don't have the scientific data to prove this yet. But I'm hearing from my police officers, from law enforcement across the state, from medical community, all over the place, that crime is going down drastically, and we don't have drug dealers anymore. I said, what do you mean you don't have drug dealers anymore? Why is that? He said, because pot was such a big part of the demand in Colorado for drugs, same as in Vermont, it's probably 80 or 90% of your demand, that the dealers couldn't stay in business selling the other stuff alone. They needed the pot as the major piece of their market. Interesting. So there's two groups against my bill to legalize pot and do it in a very cautious and smart way. One is folks who just think it's an evil thing and it's going to do terrible things. I say war on drugs hasn't worked, people are getting it anyway. You know what the other group is? It's the drug dealers. It's the drug dealers we're going to put out of business. They literally call up state senator. I had the state senator call me, I'm getting all kinds of calls against it. I said, who they're from? She said, well, it's my constituents. Well, who are they? She said, they won't tell me their names. Yeah, you're putting them out of business. So I say, put the drug dealers out of business. Put it in a regulated market, tax it at a reasonable rate so we drive the black market out, and use that money to fight addiction of all drugs, including marijuana and alcohol, and do a better job there than we've been doing. But anyone that can say that the war on marijuana, current policy in America, is working, I just don't see it that way. And I think Vermont is really losing this battle in a significant way. So it's not that we need more time, I think we need more courage.
Hello, I'm Mo Cook in Middlebury. I'd like to comment and ask you, did I hear you correctly say you were in favor of Obamacare?
Yes.
And then you also said how many jobs Vermont has created. What did, in all the benefits that the people can have, did you ever look into what you supported with Obamacare of how many people have cut their employers back so they don't have to provide health insurance? And correct me if I'm wrong, please, everybody. That affected our state services because they weren't getting it from a paycheck. They went to the state services. So therefore, it all affected everything. It was a domino effect. What did you guys do to counteract that? Why didn't you go after Obamacare and say, you know what, you left a loophole open. Why didn't you leave it where, if you're in favor of it, leave it where, okay, you know what, if you cut employers back to beat the Obamacare loophole, why didn't you surcharge them like a tax, as there's plenty of taxes in this lovely state? Why didn't you say to the employers, you know what, if you're going to lay your employer off that's working 35, 40 hours a week and hire 3 to replace them that isn't doing nothing for this economy, they've got to pay what it costs to taxpayers in the state of Vermont. I mean, a perfect example in my household. My wife was working 35 hours a week to 38. They were going to make her full-time. Lovely Obamacare come out, and all of a sudden she was cut back to 19 hours. That affected our household. That's one question for you. 2, why is it that our lovely judiciary system that's all under the control of you, there's a well-known internal, excuse me if I offend anybody, and I've talked to you about this, Claire, before, it's a well-known internal called penis penalty. I am legally blind, not by choice, but I had a job where I could walk to work. My employer had great respect for me. I had great respect for them. I had to file only because I was making $12 an hour with housing, working 45 to 48 hours a week, making decent money. I had, in the wintertime, if I would have continued on that plan, I would have had $600 to $800 a month to live on. Only because the state, this lovely state that we live in, with all the way the court system is, child support and everything, They took all that money. They expected me to live on $600 to $800 a month, while my children's mother had an income of over $4,000 a month to live on, because a lot of the money that went into her household wasn't considered under child support guideline. Right now, one more second, please. Maybe less than a minute. Right now, I am supposed to be paying probably $450 a month child support. The derivative benefits takes care of it under child support. My child's mother is getting $918 a month for one child. I am getting none of it, and I am entitled to have some of my time with my child. They say because of the way it is, she gets it all. Thank you.
Thanks for both of your questions. Maybe I'll start with the last one first. As you probably know, Vermont has guidelines for child support, and I think actually the Judiciary Committee in the House right now is taking a look at, or the Senate, both of them maybe. Which one? Yeah, they're looking at alimony right now in the Senate, and you should get involved in that conversation, because I know they want to hear from folks who are out there, dealing with these challenges. Alimony is kind of like being governor. You never win. You never make people happy. And there's no judge in the country who can give an alimony settlement and both parties go, wow, thank you, please, can I send you, can I send you a holiday gift? Having said that, because it's under really tough circumstances, having said that, you should plug into the alimony conversation going on in the legislature right now, because I think that everybody agrees that there's areas for improvement and that we should make them. Well, child support is part of alimony. Right, it's the entire package. So take a look at it. And get involved in that conversation. Going to the Obamacare, listen, I didn't say Obamacare is perfect. Frankly, I would have preferred that we just go to a publicly financed plan, much like Medicare, where we all have health insurance because we're Americans, and that's what they do in all the other countries. Having said that, the employer mandate, or the part-time exemption, I think a lot of people agree, could and should be improved. And I know that both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton have mentioned that as one of the challenges of Obamacare that needs to be fixed. So I am sympathetic to your wife's situation, and it is a byproduct of a federal bill. All I can tell you is that overall, Obamacare has been good for Vermont, because it's allowed us to draw down federal dollars to get folks into health insurance at a rate higher than I ever thought we would see to get access to health care. But is it perfect? No. What else is on your minds?
Hi, Governor. I'm Bob Nixon from Middlebury, and I have two questions. One is just a comment on the marijuana. I just read an article on the bill they passed in Colorado, and one of the downsides they found to it is that the number of people going to the emergency room for treatment for marijuana-related illnesses is up by 110%. And they said that 40% of that was from local people, but the majority of it was for people that were coming there as Colorado being a destination place where they could get marijuana legally. And my concern is for our children, what are they going to think when they say, well, it must be okay to do because the government legalized it and my parents are doing it? And also, they say, gee whiz, every day a teacher says that it's legal to smoke marijuana, so he has to join on his way to work before he comes into the classroom. It'll be legal. So those things concern me. And the second thing I just would like to ask you, I think you've done a great job, but I just was concerned about where 85% of the registered Democrats that voted in the primary voted for Bernie Sanders, and as I understand it, you are supporting Hillary Clinton, and the electorate that elected you are saying this is the way we want you to cast your vote at the convention, and I want to know what your feeling was on that. Thank you.
Sure. So on the marijuana question, let me start with that. Listen, all I ask is when we talk about this bill, ask this question: is it a problem now, or is it a problem that Bill's creating? And we've got almost 100,000 Vermonters who admit that they're smoking pot on a very regular basis right now. We're one of the highest pot smoking states in America. We just are. Now, we don't like that, but it's true. And so when you ask the question about buying on emergency room stuff, listen, there's nothing that drives people to emergency rooms and healthcare providers more than alcoholism. It just isn't. I mean, if you took alcohol out of Vermont and we weren't consuming it, all of our healthcare costs, our emergency rooms, our drunk drivers, our fatalities on the roads, all this stuff would go down like a rocket, right? So we're not saying go out and be a drunk because we sell alcohol in our stores. Kids aren't stupid. They understand the distinction. They understand they're not supposed to drink alcohol until they're 18, and then we hope they'll do it, or 21, and then we hope they'll do it moderately. With pot, it's no different. Folks are doing it now. One of the problems that Colorado had was on edibles. They turned this stuff into candies, brownies, blah, blah. I said, learning from other states, let's not do edibles in Vermont. That's what they OD on. They don't know how much is in it and all the rest. So we're not doing it. Our bill does not allow you to sell edibles in Vermont. So I think that'll help with that problem. But the final thing I'll say is, be wary of any statistic on this subject, because I find that they're usually used to support either pro or anti-pot, and when I dig into them, most of them are wrong. All I can tell you is Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado, I've asked him what the real problems are, and the real problems, he said, are edibles, which are resulting in kids getting a hold of the stuff. It's in candy. They grab it, they eat it, they're stealing mom's candy or whatever it is. They eat the stuff. So we don't want to have that problem. He said, don't have your tax be so high that it keeps the black market alive. That was our problem for a long time, so we're being careful about that. And third, it's his belief that they're actually driving the drug dealers out. So do we want to do this? Do we think pot's a good thing to smoke? No. Do we think that we would have a better shot with health, with safety, and with a more logical approach than the one we have now? Yeah, I really think our bill does that. So, again, you got 80,000 Vermonters out there smoking this stuff. A lot of them are driving. We got kids who say they can get a hold of this stuff. Adolescents, easier than booze. That's just the real world that we're in, and it's kind of like the heroin thing. We can confront it, or we can keep pretending it's not happening, but meanwhile, there's a lot of Vermonters buying this stuff from drug dealers and using it on a regular basis. They're driving. On the employment question, the employment law doesn't change. Just like you'll get fired from high school for showing up drunk, I hope, you'll get fired for showing up high. You can't show up and go teach a bunch of kids after smoking this stuff. So, those are a few of the questions. On the Bernie-Hillary question, I do support Hillary, and I do for all the reasons I've explained to you. I know the majority of Vermonters support Bernie. I love Bernie. He's a friend of mine. I have not said a negative thing about him, nor would I. I just believe that Hillary is the more qualified person to take on the toughest job in the world. And it is the toughest job in the world. This Putney boy has had the opportunity to get closer to a president than I ever thought I would. My term has coincided with President Obama. I've watched him go from a rested, handsome, dark-haired, energetic man to a wrinkled, more wrinkled, gray, tired, extremely overworked individual. And when you see just the physical changes that I've seen up close, watching him do his job, I think, extraordinarily well. You got to ask, who's ready to take on the toughest job in the world? And I think of the candidates running for a lot of reasons, it's Hillary. Now, super delegates, which is what I am, are different than elected delegates. I do not believe, when we get to the convention in Philadelphia in July, that the super delegates will be voting differently than the majority of Democrats. That hasn't happened yet, and I don't expect it to happen in Philadelphia. What else are you wondering? Well, listen, let me just close by saying this. You can see why you win friends as governor. Let's talk about what we've just talked about, right? It's all issues that we feel passionately about. The difference between being a governor and your congressional delegation, who, you know, I'm so grateful to them. We've got the best congressional delegation in America in Pat Leahy, Bernie Sanders, and Peter Welch. It's my belief. We do. I'm the luckiest governor in America to have them. But I'll tell you, you could not get me to get on an airplane every Tuesday and fly from Vermont to Washington, D.C., and stay there till Friday or Saturday to do mostly nothing because Congress doesn't do anything right now, and fly back to Vermont. That's not my ideal life. I ran for governor because I love Vermont. As a kid who was born and raised here, it gave more to this dyslexic kid from Putney who struggled to get through school, didn't come from much, and built some very successful businesses here than I could ever ask of any state in the world. And I wanted to give something back. And we've done lots of things, and I think they've made a difference. You know, when we talk about the problems that we heard from this gentleman, you know, who was asking about losing jobs because of Obamacare, and there probably have been some situations like that. You know, we've grown jobs every single year that I've been governor. Our revenues have gone up every year over the year before because of that. Incomes aren't high enough yet, but we've actually raised them. We've passed a higher minimum wage. We've just passed a great bill that's going to allow folks to not choose between being really, really sick and going to work or losing their job. We're doing more on health care, energy, education, and quality of life, including drug challenges, than I ever thought we could. And I just want to close by saying this. You are going to disagree with your governor as long as your governor is getting a lot of things done. You will. The governors that are more popular are the governors who do less, because you don't make anybody mad. Think about it. So I just want to close by saying this. You have a decision to make. You can elect a governor that gets you mad because a lot of things are happening to build a stronger state, or we can do what the rest of America tends to do and elect a governor who isn't going to take risks, who isn't going to get you mad, and probably isn't going to do much. So the stakes are pretty high. I can't thank you enough for the privilege of giving me the opportunity to do this job for 5.5 years. I'm going to keep the pedal on the metal till next January to keep getting things done. And I hope that you'll think long and hard as you go into this election about who you want to choose next. Because I say, in due respect to Bernie and to Pat Leahy and to Peter Welch and to all the other politicians in Vermont, this is the job where the rubber hits the road. You are electing the CEO of the state. This is, in your daily lives, the person that's going to make the biggest difference to you, to your kids, and to Vermont future, because we actually have to do things. We have to balance budgets. We have to decide energy policy. We have to help develop a smarter education policy. We have to create jobs and help do that. We have to pass taxation and reasonable taxation, smart taxation. We have to make sure that our farmers are getting a strong start and continuing to prosper. I mean, just so many issues. I do not have enough hours in the day to do all the things that I'm supposed to do. But my point is, this is a really important role in our state. So thanks for giving me the opportunity, and think carefully as you select your next governor, because this is where the rubber hits the road for Vermont. Thank you so much.
You're all welcome, of course, to stay, and we can have a report from each of our legislators on what's going on in their committees if you want to continue the conversation. And it seems like nobody's getting up to leave, so Claire, would you step to the microphone and answer, at least tell us what's going on in your committee?
My name's Claire Eyre. I represent towns of Addison County as well as Huntington and Buell's Gore. Excuse me. This is the end of my 7th term, and And I think the governor talked a lot about the opioid bill, which is probably the most well-known thing that's come out of my committee lately. Excuse me. My seatmate Chris Bray has a doctor's note. He couldn't be here today, and I send his regrets. But he has an energy siting bill that I think most of you will think quite a lot of.
Does he get a day off, a sick day, paid?
I'm not sure. You'll have to speak with his partner.
Fred?
My name's Fred Baser, and I'm a representative from the lovely district of Bristol, Moncton, Starksboro, and Lincoln, along with Dave Sharp. And we worked very hard in the last week of the session and heard testimony from 96 people. I think we were in committee until 8 Wednesday, 9 p.m. Thursday, and we got done at 6:30 on Friday. And there were 3 bills, but 2 which we passed. We got a buy on the 3rd, which I think we'll be able to pass next week, telecommunications. But the 2 major bills that we passed in Commerce and Economic Development, which is the committee that I'm in, one most notably is on independent contractors, which has been an issue which has been battled in the halls of the State House for quite a few years, where I think we've done a good job at clearly defining who is an employee, who is an employer, and whom might act as an independent contractor, so that people, when they look to hire folks of that regard, may have a clear idea of what to do. There's penalties associated with the bill that certainly will discourage people from abusing, trying to hire people that may not qualify as independent contractors. The bill has a long way to go to passing through the State House. The Senate, I'm sure, will have a little different ideas than we, as we're anticipating, but it was a big effort, and the committee voted it out unanimously. The other bill we voted out was an economic development bill, which actually included 18 different sections, covering all different kinds of matters, way too much to get into, and it's a 142-page bill, I believe. But it moves the needle a little bit, I hope, when it comes to economic development in the state. Lastly, I wanted to mention that there was a bill that I had put forward on workforce housing, and that passed out of House General Housing and Military Affairs, and I'm cautiously optimistic that perhaps we will pass a measure where we can move the needle a little bit for contractors to build housing for people of a median income and of affordable nature.
Thanks, Fred. Dave?
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Sharp, representing Bristol, Lincoln, Starksboro, and Moncton, along with my colleague Fred Baser. It was an incredible week, as Fred alluded to in his committee, Commerce Committee. Crossover was Friday. So any bill that a House expected to move forward in the Senate had to be passed out of our committee by Friday. We worked on 2 bills in Education Committee, a bill on special education and a bill on education taxes. So we had a PICUS report. Part of Act 46 was a study of adequacy. So we have an equity state. Our Constitution requires that our education is delivered equitably to all students across the state. It can be lousy, but it has to be equitable. Of course, we believe in good education for our students, so we commissioned a study to say, okay, what's an adequate amount of money to spend for educating our students? And that study came back and said that essentially we're spending the right amount of money for regular education, but for special education, we're spending $140 million too much, and we spend $30 million too much in administration. So Act 46 addresses the administrative costs to some extent. We put out a bill on Friday, passed unanimously out of our committee, that addresses some of the costs with regard to special education. We feel that some of the funding mechanisms in how we fund special education in the state and the rules around that restrict school systems from doing the best jobs they can and doing it in a cost-effective manner. So our bill moves us in a direction where we believe we will do a better job with special education, and we believe in that process it'll be less expensive. An example of that was given by the speech and language specialists, that the policy or practice in Vermont is to have one speech and language person dealing with one student in a one-on-one relationship. The standards, the studies, the research say that you should have 3 or 4 students working with a special educator. If we move in that direction, then actually we have students talking to each other. Isn't that speech and language? And it bears out the research that that we have more effective education of our students, and by paying for one speech and language specialist for 4 students rather than a one-on-one situation, you can actually save considerable amount of money doing that. And that kind of practice pervades our special education across the state, and it's sort of incentivized in a way by our funding system. So looking at changing both practice and the funding system in order to move forward and do a better job with special education. So taxes, that we left those at what the Ways and Means Committee suggested. As you know, we moved to a yield process, so we've fixed statewide education-based taxes at $1 and 2%, $1 for those who pay their homestead taxes based on their property value, and 2% for the 2/3 of Vermonters that pay according to their income. And those are fixed going forward, and then what we calculate is how much money that raises per student across the state. And on the penny rate, it raises $9,701, and on the income rate, it raises $10,870. Spending over that in local school districts, if you're 10% over, then your taxes are 10% over $1, which is $1.10, or 10% over 2%, which is 2.02%, or somebody do the math for me. Anyway, the percentage rate is the same increase. So those are the work that we did in Education Committee this week, and it'll be interesting to move forward and see how those bills do.
Okay, we're open again for questions. If folks want to step forward.
My name is George Cloak. I live in Middlebury. I don't know just how to react to the governor's expecting applause for his consistency. But what I want to say is that anybody who watches the news and watches what's going on in Vermont knows that there are hundreds of people who are devoting a great deal of attention, like Mary Martin, to trying to understand what it means to have fracked gas piped into this part of Vermont. There are hundreds of people who are standing up all the time, writing letters, giving testimony, trying to plead with the Public Service Board and the governor that this is not a good idea. I want to say just briefly that it may have been a good idea in many people's minds at one point, but I think what time has showed us over time is that things change all the time. And now, as Mary has reported to us, it's no longer an economic benefit. And it's also, I think, part of the record that everybody should understand that the Vermont Gas has abused people, lied to people, and not been a good business partner for the people of Vermont. So I still want to say, and I stand up to say right now, that I think the smart thing is to still try to stop this from happening.
Any legislators want to address that? It's more of a comment than anything else. Are there other questions? Oh, I knew you'd have another question.
Come on, you think I was going to let you off easy?
No.
I don't know just exactly where it stands, but we've been having a lot of noise about, gee, let's put the property taxes on the fraternities and sororities. I think this is, I don't know whether this was a backdoor thing started by someone endemic in the University of Vermont. But when you talk about this, what it really is going to do is going to generate maybe education taxes to the state, a few dollars, and a few dollars to the city of Burlington, but it's not going to be sustainable, because lo and behold, when these fraternities and sororities fold because they can't sustain the tax burden, guess who is going to be the only purchaser? And the university has already been purchasing in a few. So maybe a year or two, and guess what? It's all going to disappear because University of Vermont's going to own the damn buildings, and it won't be sustainable. Thank you.
Claire, I think you have an answer.
Well, I thought I had an answer, but I'm not sure that there was a question by the time I got over here, so I'm not sure.
The question is why do it? And I know you legislators are out looking for every stinking.
Okay.
But you ain't gonna get it.
The question is, why do it, Claire?
In the state of Vermont, and I can see Dave has talked about this for a long time in his position on the House Tax Committee, and 14 years ago when I started in Senate Finance, we were talking about it then. There's a huge amount of property on the property tax list in the state of Vermont that's exempt from paying property taxes. A lot of them are hospitals, schools, universities, healthcare places. A lot of them are places like the Italian Club, the American Legion, and fraternities. Fraternities were originally exempt under the educational provision. The idea in the Senate, at least, was that we were going to systematically go through and review the categories of exemption from the property tax and have an overarching reason, not just that fraternity or this hospital or that college, to keep them exempt or put them back on. A few years ago, we removed the exemption from the fraternities and sororities all over the state, and then postponed it for a while. Their exemption is, the law says that they're going to lose their exemption in 2017, and I think it's the right direction to go in. It may be possible that UVM or Champlain College or Middlebury College will buy those buildings, and I do know how important fraternities are to a lot of people. My husband was, his best friends of his life are from his fraternity in college. They will raise money. He would have gotten letters saying we have to pay our taxes now, send us some more money. And he would send money.
Dave?
I'd just like to address this from a broader perspective. So when I sat on the Ways and Means Committee, there's somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion that we give in tax exemptions for a variety of things across the state. And if we were to actually collect that money, the tax rates for all of us would be lower. And we'd have the same amount of money in the state treasury. So we set forth this process of looking at we look at fees on a 3-year rotating basis. We said, well, let's start looking at tax exemptions on a 3-year rotating basis. And so we started that process, and the first little tiny tax exemption that the Ways and Means Committee and the Finance Committee in the Senate moved forward with was saying that, housing in in colleges and university fraternities and sororities is not an educational function. It's a function where they're in competition with local renters that have to pay property taxes on their property, and so that property shouldn't be exempt. And this has generated a huge battle over whether this exemption should be allowed or not. And it's indicative of all the exemptions that we have for taxes. We carve out this little piece for this group, and that little piece for that group, and another little piece for another group, and pretty soon you have $500,000 or $500 million or $1 billion that you're not collecting in taxes. It's ridiculous. I believe that we should tax broadly and at a lower rate. I don't see us ever getting there, frankly, because this one little tiny tax exemption, we're being thwarted in moving that forward. And you know, I have my favorite. That's Blue Cross Blue Shield. You know, pays no property tax on their property, but Cigna, a profit-making company that provides the same service, health care insurance, they have to pay property tax. That was my favorite. I picked that one as the one little thing that we take the first step forward, and we weren't able to do that. So this is a huge challenge in state government to have. Now, some tax exemptions are probably really valuable and needed in the state, but overall, we give way too many tax exemptions, and the result is that the taxes for all of us are a little higher than they need to be.
Thanks, David. And that's the last word for today. We've run out of time, but want to remind you that the legislative breakfasts and lunches are sponsored by the Bridport Grange, the Addison County Farm Bureau, and supported by the Addison County Chamber of Commerce and Addison County Regional Planning. We'll hope that you'll all join us next week, next Monday. We're going back for breakfast, and it'll be at the Congregational Church on Maple Street in Salisbury. I think that's a first for us, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know that we've ever been at the Congo Church in Salisbury, but we'll see you all there. 7 o'clock. Program begins at 7:30. Thank you for coming. And don't forget, the donation jar is in the back or in the front, if you want to call it that.